Hello. So today we're going to be looking at pivot tables and charts. Without a doubt, pivot tables are the engines, the ability that it gives you to summarize, to slice and cut the different data sets in different ways. It makes it such a powerful tool and something that has to be within the capabilities of a good data analyst because it's still so prevalent in the utilization of Excel and a quick way to summarize information. Even especially bigger data sets as well. It's really good for that. And sometimes you can even do elements of your data cleaning by just looking at pivot tables and identifying certain issues within the data. But it's primarily utilized to summarize it once everything is clean and in a way that you can start to learn from it. So if you go into the Insert tab and you click on the pivot table, I've highlighted everything because it's actually sort of embedded as a common practice to do. But actually, you can just click on anywhere on the pivot table and it'll do exactly the same thing. Like you can see, it's highlighting the whole information, and you can see by this sort of dashed line going around it that it's picked it all up, and that usually tends to appear once it's essentially copied the right information. But it's going to be linked to this specific sheet. So at this point, we can add our pivot table results into new worksheet or existing worksheet. And adding this data to the data model allows you to combine different tables together as well. So for now, we'll just add it to new tables. Here, it gives you a little bit of a preview of when it was going to build your report on here as soon as you start to add fields from the pivot table field list. So here's your field list on the right, and it breaks it down by 4 key options. So the first key option is values that allows you to aggregate the information, whether you're doing addition via sums or average or other mathematical functions. Rows allows you to break the data up into categories. Columns allow you to almost subcategorize it as well. And filters allows you to apply specific fields and filter the information or that you've created within your specific pivot table. So if we just play around with it a little bit, we can put ID into values. Now, it's not probably a good idea to do a sum of the ID because that doesn't really tell you anything, especially in this data set where an ID refers to a specific admission. But if you click on the drop down arrow and click value field settings, you can see that you can change the way the value is summarized by a lot of different mathematical functions. But we're going to just use the count, which tells us we got 100 admissions in our specific data set. So if we then add in the age banding, which we utilize to create add-on child, we can see we got 89 children, sorry, 89 adults in this data set and 11 children. If we add in the gender, it lets us filter them by the specific gender here, and you can click M for male. You can see we have 57 overall, and F for female, which we have 43 overall. And then we can do the subcategorization, for instance, the patient region, and we can see that the majority of our patients are coming from the Northwest region. So that's a quick breakdown into that specific combination. And then it's just a case of playing with it in order to learn how the visualizations look. You can actually change some of this in the design, and you can change the color schemes. You can remove the headers in terms of the design of them. The report layout tends to be quite significant. So sometimes when you see different pivot tables and you're like, oh, that doesn't really look like a pivot table, it's just because they changed different aspects of the layout to tabular form to compact form where things are underneath, or tabular form where things are spaced out. And all of that sort of layout changes can sometimes quite dramatically change how a pivot table actually looks within your specific data sheet. If we were just to remove this and add in a data field here, you can see it automatically groups the data. In this case, it's grouped by the specific month and then the specific day. But you can actually ungroup this and get the daily analysis. So if you were doing a daily analysis, you might not want it grouped. But if you want to regroup it, you can select what sort of breakdown you want. So I think in that specific one, we had month and days. And you can see that it's grouped it back to month and days, and then you can collapse and expand the fields as well. So you got sort of different options within your pivot table analysis. One of the commonly used options, let's remove the date fields and put in, let's create a scenario. So let's try to look at the length of stay by the hospitals. So we'll go up and pick up a hospital. We'll remove patient region, not super interested in that right now. We'll call this admissions just so that it's very clear. And we can see now our length of stay, but we don't want a summary of length of stay. We want average. Now, we know that our averages will be impacted quite significantly by the fact that if we apply a patient age banding, some of the children is not a lot. So we'll remove the admissions just so we can do an analysis of length of stay by day. So we'll imagine that we have a much bigger and larger data set, and we can make such statements like adults are staying longer or children are staying longer in different hospitals. Let's do that. So a feature you can add to it is a slicer. Now, a slicer allows you to essentially apply a filter, but it creates a more interactive element within your dashboard. So we'll add different slicer, we'll add the patient region, we'll add the hospital region, and maybe let's add a diagnosis as well. So I've created here 3 slicers that filter the data again, and then we can start to make really a powerful dashboard in some ways. So we can see how many patients had stroke, what region they were coming from, hospital region, and also what patient region they were in. So you can see quite quickly it can become quite a powerful tool in order to slice the information together. And the timeline one is essentially a slicer, but it allows you to utilize date fields. So it automatically identified 2 of our date fields. So we'll use admission date. And because we only have data for 2 months, we can apply a filter just to look at April, or just to look at May, or to look at both of those specific fields. So that's a really powerful way that you can cut through the data in an interactive format and allow people to create the visualization that they personally want to create. In here as well, you can use calculated field. It's not always used as often, but it allows you to add another field of calculation. So, for instance, if we didn't have length of stay, you can add in discharge, take away admission day as a calculated field. And you can see it's literally added in as a measure. It hasn't added into actual data set, but it exists in this measure. And then obviously you can specify how you want that field to look and how you want it to calculate the information, and primarily as well, what data format it has to be. In this case, it thinks it's a date, but it should really be a number value. So that's how calculated field works. So we'll remove that for now as well, and just highlight another element or feature that's sometimes utilized. Show details can be really powerful because once you've done some really sophisticated pivot tables, sometimes you just need to see what's underneath that pivot table. So over there, I clicked on Manchester Royal, I clicked on Show Details, and it gives me the exact breakdown of the data that's contributing to that specific answer. So if I needed to understand if there's any outliers or if there's anything that's truly influencing that information, then that's exactly what I'll do and just click more detail and opens a new sheet with that specific detail analysis. You can actually double click it as well and it'll do a similar thing. It's just to highlight that specific feature that tends to be really important, especially when you get like pivot table or a workbook that you personally haven't worked a lot with, then you can see lots of things there. Sometimes you just need to dig into it and reverse engineer it. Cleared allows you to clear all the filters and fields, which we won't do for now. And select allows you to select your whole pivot table. You can also change the data source. So if for whatever reason your sheets and the data moves into a different sheet or it's a different location, you can actually change the data source as well. So the final element of our pivot table and charts was utilizing charts. So you can just add in a pivot chart, and the beautiful thing about a pivot chart that is different from a normal chart is that you can change your table around and it will actually change with it. So for instance, if I added hospital region into it, you can see that it's added hospital region as well. So you got the hospital that we're in, the age banding breakdown, and the hospital region it pertains to. So something that would be more interesting would be if they were treated in or out of region. So you can see in St. Mary's, the breakdown of adult and children, all of their patients were treated or came from out of region. But if they were adults, some of them came from in region and out of region. So it lets you make some really clear and powerful statements. And obviously, if you're using a time series analysis, you might want to use a line chart and other charts that are more relevant to date formats. So that is hopefully a good breakdown of the utilization of pivot tables, of pivot charts, and the different things that you can do with it. I think the biggest way to learn is to practice. So literally go onto your workbooks, practice all the elements I mentioned, especially the ones I mentioned in passing, and just see what they can do, and you'll be a master of pivot tables in no time.